Welcome back to Behind the Educator's Lens. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I am coming to you today from the Kwantlen, Katzie, Matsqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations on this most beautiful September day. The sun is shining, and I got out there this morning with my coffee. It is my favorite time of the year, so I am very grateful to be here on those lands. And my name is Robyn Young. Today's guest is someone who doesn't just speak truth, she throws it down like confetti at a staff meeting that actually doesn't suck. Dr. Jody Carrington is a clinical psychologist, best-selling author, and the kind of human who makes you laugh, cry, and rethink your entire approach to connection all in one sentence. She's worked with educators, first responders, and families navigating trauma, burnout, and the kind of emotional exhaustion that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. Her book, Feeling Seen, is a love letter to humanity, and her podcast, Unlonely, is a rally cry for reconnection. So if you're an educator who's ever felt like you're holding your classroom together with duct tape and caffeine, this episode is your permission slip to feel seen. Welcome, Dr. Jody Carrington.
Woo! That was fantastic. I'm going to take you on the road with me, just spewing the facts.
Oh, yeah. Do you have somebody that's an intro person yet? I could totally do that for you. Warm up your audience, maybe throw out a bit of comedy. We can go on the road.
Done.
Okay. All right, put me in the budget.
So what are we talking about today? All things educators and the holy work they do.
All things educators and the holy work they do and we do. But before we dive into all this deep stuff, let's loosen up with a little this or that. No overthinking, just gut reactions. You ready, Dr. Jody?
Got it.
Coffee or wine after a tough day?
Fuck. Wine. Oh yeah, are we allowed to swear here? I forgot.
Yeah, you know what? Today I'm going to put that explicit content
give her
on
the
my...
biggie and
Yeah,
then
you just be you. I'm going to give
We're
the
going to
biggie.
need it. We're going to need it. Yes. After a day, wine. I'm 50, Robyn. So if I drink coffee after 2, Mama's going to rock and roll till at least 3 a.m. So I need, at the end of a tough day, obviously I only have one choice. Okay.
I'm the one who needs it in an IV. Like it's never enough.
Hey, got it.
Okay, staff meeting or root canal?
Oh, staff meeting all day. The only staffs coming to mind are the ones that want to be there. So I would curate that staff meeting and it's a good time.
Yeah, I bet it would be a good time with you. That could also be a skill that you could teach us is how to improve staff meetings.
Yes, ma'am. I want it. I can do that.
Okay, hugs or high fives?
Hugs all day.
Yeah. You do a 20-second hug?
I do like them. I feel like it's a really difficult for some people. And so I like to sort of monitor how much you can handle. But I think for my nervous system, I'm a huge hugger.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's how we're saying hello and goodbye.
Nice.
Therapy session or hockey game?
Oh God, I usually do both at the same time. So I do a lot of therapy in the stands at hockey games. I usually sit with the people who I adore. And so we, change. That's where we do a lot of great conversations. I have 2 kids in hockey. The twins both play. And I'm such a hockey mom and a hockey fan. I've coached, I play, I do lots of work with coaches. So I think it's one of the holiest places, the rink. So I think a lot of good therapy happens in a rink.
Yeah, I think so too. I love that you're creating community even on the stands.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta, this is the way you hold your team together, right? You got to get that one dysregulated set of parents beside you. And when they're like, hey, what the fuck was that? You're like, hey, you know what? It was a good call. Let's go get some fries. We're going to be okay. They're not going to the Olympics. Okay. We're training them for the beer league, Jason. Okay. Look at my eyes. It's going to be okay. Yeah. The ref is
Let's go get some fries. You need a snack. I love it.
Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. We'll get gravy too.
What is scarier, burnout or boredom?
Ooh, boredom is not scary at all. Boredom is necessary. So I would have to pick burnout.
Yeah, burnout does. I was there was a time where I was burnt out it felt like about a year. Yeah, very, very bad place to be, but I'm glad I'm not there anymore. Being seen or being liked?
Oh God, is that even a question? That's a dumb question. Being seen all day. Who fucking cares who likes you? I mean, I think that I think those are two very different ends of the spectrum. When we think about having somebody to have the capacity to feel seen or to give that to you is holy, and being liked is so superficial and important to so many of us. But I think that it's once you felt seen, you'd never give it up for anything.
Yeah, it really is a different feeling. I know you mentioned you're 50. I'm turning 40 in about 3 months. And I feel like this decade, that has been the shift for me, is that I've kind of shifted out of the these where I really do think it was about being liked. And I'm almost in a bit of a pruning season where I'm
Mhm.
actually not worried so much about being liked, which is a different feeling because that comes with consequences.
Isn't it?
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, right? It definitely, and I think as a people pleaser, it definitely shakes up that tree that you have, and there's a lot of fruit that is not there anymore.
No, it falls absolutely. And I think that's necessary. I also think it's a rite of passage. I think that, some people learn it a little bit younger, but I think there is a collection of souls that happen in our teens and in our 20s, even where we're trying to figure out who we are.
Hmm.
And we do that best in the context of relationship. So it should be a gathering of um, trying to widen that circle. And I think one of the beauties of aging is being able to then get more specific on who you are and then how valuable your time is. And so you really then get to choose who you want to spend that precious time with. So it has been just such a joy to like enter into this like decade of my 50s and just really notice, what tables do I want to sit at? And when I look
Hmm.
around, who is at what table? And, how do I put myself into rooms where, I can offer something, but how many times am I in a room where I feel small and that I have to soak it up and that I have to, pay close attention. And so like deliberately making those choices every year is something I think that's so critical for growth.
I love that. I'm gonna revisit that in this next decade. Keep that
Hmm.
advice, right? And lock it in.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
beautiful. Okay, last one for you. Cry in the car or cry in the staff room?
I would do both. I'll cry wherever I can let her go. And I think that I think that we need to normalize that a little bit more. And I think there's a big difference. Brene Brown talked about this for a really long time around what we assume vulnerability is. So vulnerability
Mm.
isn't just sort of breaking down and I can't do this anymore all the time and really just combobulating everybody else. But it's like sometimes the tears come in the staff room because of what happened with the degree to which you love your work and the kids you serve and the families you serve. And sometimes it happens in my car when nobody's going to get it and I don't need to put that on anybody else. It's actually a conversation between me and whoever. Usually it's my dad these days. I buried him 125 days ago. And so I do a lot of work in the car with him and I love it. It's a pretty special place to be able to sort of, I think, have that. And I think for a long time we've often said, if you find yourself crying in the car or whatever, like this is the worst place you want to be. And I don't really think that's true. I think all of the emotion of this crazy, overwhelming space that we're in this season and that we will continue to be in, it needs to go somewhere. Otherwise, it'll eat you from the inside out. And I mean, I always say this. I mean, anxiety and depression will not kill you. Not talking about it might. And sometimes that means just talking it out loud in your car to, spiritually or to somebody who's died or like the wind can be equally as effective.
Oh, that was deep, Dr.
Mhm.
Jody.
Buckle up, Robyn. I'm just getting started.
Just like click in. I love that. I love that. Okay, now that we've cracked open the sass jar, let's talk about something you have been shouting from the rooftops. And honestly, it's about time someone did. You have said we're not in a mental health crisis, we're in a loneliness epidemic. That hit me hard. What does that look like in schools, and why aren't we naming it more often?
Great question. I think because none of us have been here before.
Mm.
So we actually don't have a script for this. This isn't a fault of educators or parents or kids or, anybody in this mix. I think there's a couple of things that come to mind when I think about this. People ask me all the time about kids these days. They're really worried about kids these days. And John Haidt wrote a beautiful book in 24 called The Anxious Generation that is brilliant. And he pointed out a couple of things in there that I'd never really thought about before when we're considering kids. This is the first generation of children that we're teaching who are this sleep deprived and this attention fragmented. So when we're still considering traditional curriculum, the development of traditional curriculum made a couple of assumptions. Number one, kids are regulated when you open your book. And number two, that they have been filled up with relationship prior to starting their day. Those are major assumptions that were much easier to make even 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Because if we look at the data, what's happened just in a couple of generations, one and a half even, we've seen a massive increase in single parent households. We've seen a sudden decrease in siblings. We've seen a massive decrease in access to grandparent or grandparent-like figures, which means a lot of the babies that are stepping into your classrooms come with a paucity of relationship that we didn't see in many of our careers so far, right? Like at the beginning of our careers. And so, it's estimated, I think I said this in Kids These Days, that like our great grandparents looked at their children 72% more of the time than we look at our babies today. And when you're going to teach the literacy and numeracy, it's predicated on the fact that you have an emotionally regulated brain
Mhm.
to receive that information. So when all of those things are in place, the curriculum's not the problem. The issue is we now see a lot more dysregulation, not because kids are bad. Okay. And this is the question I ask often as educators. And when you're listening to this, I want you to think about this. Like if you've been doing this for more than 10 years, have you seen a difference in kids? And, many people say when I'm speaking to a group of teachers, they'll be like, yes, kids are so different than they were 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And I'll say, okay, what do you notice? And they'll say things like, oh my God, they have no attention span. They don't know how to work. They don't know how to be bored. They are always on their devices. They don't know how to respect people. They can't take direction well. They're coddled by their parents, all these kind of things, right? And so, which is, I mean, many of us would say those things quite clearly. And I'm like, holy shit, if that's the case of, children in Maple Ridge, we're fucked because,
Mhm.
this is awful, right? And then the next question is, have you seen a change in parents these days? Right. So the affirmative action is around this idea that yes. And so I would say, what have you noticed? Well, they're always on their phones, they're overwhelmed, they're not sleeping, they're stressed right out, they don't know their kids, they spend very little time with their kids even in the evening. Okay, so here's the truth: the kids are not the problem. If the
Mhm.
big people aren't okay, the little people don't stand a chance. And historically in the institution of education, what we've done is invest all of our time, money, resources into the children. And in many school divisions, for example, districts across North America, I mean, I spoke globally now to schools around the world. And, many mantras, many visions, many missions, many things that happen on the board or the sort of sign of district offices are kids matter, kids first, kids are our priority, the children, blah, 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 which is a lovely sentiment. But I think this is going to be the most important shift in education. If we don't start to move our resources to the teachers, to the big people, the little kids will continue to suffer because we are the first generation of educators, of parents, of bus drivers, of custodians to have access to social media. And we have spent the last 5 years really talking about cell phone policies for kids. We need cell phone policies for teachers.
Yep.
We need cell phone policies for administrators because there's two rules to the human race. Number one, whoever created us said this: I'm going to make you neurobiologically wired for connection. Despite the fact that we have AI everywhere, the only AI that's going to matter if you want bums and seats in your school division is to embody the idea that the only AI that matters is authentic interaction. At the
Wow.
end of the day, that's the only thing that matters because we're neurobiologically wired for connection. You disconnect from an infant, they die. In our lifetime and the foreseeable future, we will never get good at automating relationship. There are hundreds of millions of neurons sitting on top of our bodies. The most complex thing that's happening is up there. And we're not going to be able to automate that in the vast foreseeable future. Okay, we're going to give it a shot, but we won't. The second rule of the human race, despite the fact rule number one is we're neurobiologically wired for connection. The second rule of the human race, whoever made us, just sort of like gave us a curveball. They were like, despite the fact that I made you neurobiologically wired for connection, you're going to do better in relationship. The second rule is this: the hardest thing you will ever do is look at each other. And we've never had so many opportunities to look away. And when I say this to teachers, in a room full of educators, holy people who have like changed the lives of children more than they could ever dream. And I would say to them, they're like, oh, it's not hard to look at people. Like I look at people all the time. I'm very social. I'm a mom, I'm a dad, I'm a whatever. And I would say, okay, so make eye contact right now in this room. And what's fascinating about this, right, is then you see each other, they're looking at each other with their tongues out, they're making, like jokes and like funny faces with each other, or, like the PE teachers or the gym teachers are in the back with their arms crossed going like, this is fucking dumb. And it happens the same. It's like a same all across North America. Okay. And it's interesting because despite the fact that we spend time with children every single day and that we're pretty good at relational development, we struggle to look at each other. And now we have sexy opportunities to not have to look.
Mm,
You get in an elevator. Where do you look? You're going for a walk in your community, right? Very few people, increasingly so, will offer a hello, a wave, a compliment, right? It's an effort to be able to do those things. And you often scare the recipient,
yeah.
particularly if you don't know them. Okay. So if you get in an elevator and you sort of turn around or turn to the side and be like, oh my God, I love your jean jacket. There's some sort of sense of like, what the fuck is happening here? And so when we think about those two things, that we're neurobiologically wired for connection, but the hardest thing we will ever do is look at each other. I am so interested in the fact that, we've seen increases in anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and completion like never before. In fact, this is the first time in history that we are dying faster from emotional illness than from physical illness. We'll kill ourselves by our own hands than by any other form of death because why? Because it must be we're in a mental health crisis. Huh? That must be it. And so you're right. We look at the numbers, anxiety, depression, all those things are happening. But I think there's a reason for that. I think
Mhm.
we're in an understandable human response to a loneliness epidemic because if we're wired for connection, if that is the irrefutable truth, which it is, and we've never had so many opportunities to look away, what we are dying from is loneliness. We look at kids less. We have bigger classrooms. You know what? Just work from home. Let's online school. Let's put all our outreach programs online because kids are getting too much into trouble when they come into programs. I just noticed today Mark Zuckerberg announced you as of in October you can start to buy glasses. They partnered with
Both meta
Oakley.
glasses.
So the Meta
That's going to
glasses.
change the game.
For sure. So they not only will we now have another visual in front of us that will disconnect us from humans. The
Mhm.
intent is to keep us more connected to the people in a virtual world,
Right.
but you can't automate relationship. The neurological response that I get, the neurochemistry that would happen, neurochemical changes that would happen if we did this podcast in the same room are drastically different than what's going to happen here online. Technological advances are beautiful because it allows for accessibility. We can be in two different provinces and do this. I can check on my mom anytime I want. I can FaceTime with my dad who's in the nursing home. Like all those things can happen. We now are way ahead in sort of medical research and all of these things because of technological advances. But the cost has been so phenomenal in a space that we didn't even see coming because we're developing beyond human capacity. And what I think is fascinating about this is that like we thought smoking was good once too. Okay. We let that horse out of the barn and we were like, fuck yeah, let's smoke on planes. Very fancy people can smoke. You're gonna get a filter and a tube and the lung, like and we thought that about kids. When introduction of the forward facing camera is 2009. Okay. Our son was born in 2010. And I remember being super proud as a mom that like at 3 years old, he could like navigate baby Einstein on the iPad.
Right.
Like this was going to be the next thing. And
Yeah.
now we get data that would suggest, kids shouldn't have phones in their hands until at least 16. And we're like,
Yes.
what the hell are we supposed to do with that, John? The horse is out of the barn. I can't say that to my kids. And so we're really caught in this place where,
Yes.
we've just like smoking, we've created a massive addiction globally. And then you're saying, just a second, it'll kill you. Just a second, we need legislation, policy. We need government interference to be able to say, you can't smoke inside buildings, you can't smoke on planes, you can't do all those things. And so we're seeing that shift now because that is just really how damaging, without intervention or supervision, some of these things can be. But it doesn't mean they're bad. It means that we will have to adapt to, making it as healthy or as consumably healthy as we can in a way. And it's going to feel a lot like I would imagine it would have done in the smoking, era, a lot like, a stepping on our human rights, a question on freedom and, those kind of things. So I'm fascinated by it all.
Yeah. There's so many things. My brain was like, yes, and then yes, and yes. I have read that Jonathan Haidt book in this past year as well. And my best friend and I are, right in the middle of like my son is 7 and my daughter is 11. And so they don't have devices in their hands yet. We do have a tablet in the house, but we have also noticed like, oh my goodness, we are I guess, right in the middle of our children being in that space where we have still a little bit of pull and capacity to perhaps change and adapt and give them some boundaries. It's been so fascinating. What she did was she actually installed a corded phone in her house. And that is one thing that Jonathan Haidt recommends. And I think that that is so brilliant because it's such an easy little, like, and it's cheap too, right? Like, it won't cost you a ton to do it. So if you can, installing something like that and bringing back the corded phone days, right? And finding these little ways. But that's funny. It's almost like we were raised in the 90s, and it's those swaps where I'm trying to make sure that my kids understand and they get both, because one is not going away, but one actually has the ability to. All of these old ways that we used to do, we can still share that with them, but we have to be intentional about that. There's still hope if we open up our eyes a little bit and start to look for, okay, I can pull it in here and I have control over this space.
And I think this is a point. I have tons of hope. In fact, I've never been more
Yes.
hopeful about the future
Yeah.
generation. I mean, my babies are so much more open and conversational and inclusive and kind and engaged and aware of the world. That's what technological advance is part of it has afforded for them. And I'm super excited to see what they're going to do on this planet. Like I am not scared of the responsiveness to a change in the world is not new. So there's been sort of probably, I can't remember the number exactly, but like 5 major industrial turnovers in, that conceivably in this on this planet. And you watch every one of those turnovers means like none of us have been here before. So we actually don't
Right.
know what we're doing. What we do know is what works for the human operating system, right? So what I think has happened in every iteration of massive evolution is to go back to what works. And the through line is sort of 4 things for me, right? Like I'm always interested in your attachment. I'm always interested in your childhood. I'm always interested in where the story, the root came to how people operate and your capacity for emotional regulation. That always started in childhood. So people, ask me as a psychologist all the time, does it always come back to your childhood? Yes, every fucking time. Not because that's going to determine where you go, but
Yeah.
to look back and have a very clear understanding of what those early developmental years are like for you really gives us a lot of information about what we might need to support you or get you back on course or whatever that looks like. Okay. So the first thing for me, if I were to, I just started writing about this for the next book, and I'm like, if there's 4 things that I would keep, okay, to define a optimal human operating system. I call them the keepers, okay? Because these are the 4 things of all the things that make a human great. These are the 4 things I keep. Number 1, I would keep calm, which is really looking at the attachment and the emotional regulation. Who's doing that? How do we do that? Who's in your life right now that does that for you? All those questions. What was that early experience like? We don't need to know how it's affecting you now, but I need you to know that about it. Okay. Number 2 is keep community. If I were to choose the second thing that's most important in developing optimal humans, it is who is the community, the kin, your access to your village. And historically, that worked to keep us alive. Now it works to keep us alive in a regulated other way. Okay. The third is the keeper of rituals and time. I'm very interested in how much your life is centered around some predictable structure. So we know we do well when we have worship on Saturdays or hockey practice. We play adult hockey on Thursday nights, or, our family gets together every Thanksgiving, or it comes back to traditions and predictability that we can sort of put on a calendar. Okay. And the fourth keeper that I would always sort of want to look at when I'm wondering about optimal human functioning is the keeper of lanes. How clear are the roles in the places you play? At home, at work, and in your friendships. So I like to think about those 4 things, those 4 keepers, as something that I would take a look at across every piece. And when I get to speak to a school or like IHOP or Coors Molson, I'm working with those organizations or those people to say sort of like, okay, let's consider these 4 keepers, right?
Love it. Yeah.
And at home, they all play really big. At work, they all play really big. And in your friendships, they all play really big. but they're usually like these roles bleed and blend. They're no longer balanced and we can't silo them. Our friendships often intertwine with work. Work and home are never about balancing them anymore because you fucking can't. You wake up checking your email.
Right.
And so that was a thing. And I think I was telling you this, but like my dad, we buried him like 130 days ago. And
Wow.
I often think about how different our lives were like in just one generation, like when he came home from work, nobody could get him. Nobody. And before I even pee, I'm checking my email. I'm strapping on. So I'll show you, like for those of you that are listening, I'm wearing an Apple Watch and I've got an Aura ring on. So I've got two things strapped to me right
Yep.
now that are going to instantly give me data. One of these things give me access, like strapped to my wrist is everybody I know. So everywhere I go in this world, if I'm at work or I'm talking to you, I have to shut off the notifications because I'm actually not that good to stay connected to you because here, my brother can text me anytime. Okay. I'm not sure he's going to survive the death of my father. So if he texted me to say, Jode, can you give me a call right now? Although I would be able to continue to have this conversation, you're going to lose 40% of me
Right.
because I want to know if he's okay. Yeah.
Yes.
My kids have access. My assholerish father-in-law has access. I'm just kidding. But like he's dreamy. But like everybody, all the team snap bitches, now they're there, everybody's there. And so it's like a cortisol shooter that does not give us time to process or make sense of it, right? And as a teacher, you also, your students, their parents have access to you all the time. And in our smaller communities, even our larger communities, it's not hard to figure out where you live. So there's very little capacity to put your shoulders down to truly feel like there's a place of rest and relaxation. Because even in one generation, if I think back to my dad again, Sundays were sacred. And we've lost that in one generation. Most Sundays, I'm at a hockey rink screaming at some 13-year-old ref. There's no refueling of this system. So burnout is never a function of the work we do. It's a function of our ability or lack thereof to rest. And we have this story in our bones. Many of our dads taught us this, that if you rest, you're lazy.
Yes.
And they told that story in a time where that was true because you only had 8 daylight hours and you can nap later. We got rocks to pick and things to do and meals to take to the whatever. Mom's got to get to work. I got to get here. Yeah, for sure. Because after 6, everything shuts down. Here, after 6, we're just barely, I don't even know where the kids are. We got to get one to hockey and we're just eating and somebody's going to eat at 7. So there's something in the crock pot. We all get home at maybe 9. I don't know where the babies are. Aaron is like too tired. That's my personal husband. So he's going to go to bed but he's not really. He's in our bedroom watching Narcos in some fucking show. And I'm out here watching Dateline. We're in the same house together, but nobody knows where each other is.
Yeah.
Which was very different one generation ago. I'm not romanticizing it, but like, I mean, you would play marbles or cards or something because you didn't have anything else to do. The size of the beds you slept in. My grandparents, single bed, they had to figure their shit out. Now, I mean, I don't even know where Aaron is most of the time. We got a king size bed. I don't even need to talk to him actually. Like we've created. There's a budget where we talk about things on, on his computer and the rest of it looks good. You're good. We're good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the bad news. Like, again, there's no need to sort of like, I think there's a soul ripping section that comes with this time where you can't address what you don't acknowledge. So when we give ourselves the permission to sort of understand why in this season we might feel overwhelmed or incompetent or be worried to death for our children or consume hours of CNN and Charlie Kirk, vitriol conversations that then like absolutely destroy us. And we feel scared and worried and overwhelmed. And that then means we're just going to go to bed. When we constantly take in that data, what we're missing is the beauty of humanity because it has never been easier. This is why I always say to my educators, there's never been an easier time to teach. There's never been a better time to build a business, mostly because the bar is so low. You don't actually have to be great. I said to my kids the other day, who's your favorite teacher? They said, Mr. Seeley. Mr. Seeley taught them in grade 3. They're now in grade 7. Okay. And I'm like, whoa, boys, girls, why are we back in grade 3? What was it about Mr.
I was a grade 3 teacher. I know why. It's just grade 3.
Well, for sure. But I thought they would come up with something because I said to them, like I get to speak to teachers all over the world. Like you tell me, why would you say Mr. Seeley after all these years? And Evan puts up his hand because you people taught him this. And he said to me, and I thought like maybe there'd be some like learning strategy or something. He's like, he had a fish.
What?
That's it. The fucking guy had a fish. Now, I can tell you Chance Seeley is the most remarkable human on the planet, and he had many more things than a fish. He was regulated and funny, and he loved his job, and all the things. But like, my point is that, literacy and numeracy really have very little to do with what kids will talk about in a decade from now. All they're looking for is that there is some sense of regulation, there is some sense of anchoring, and there is some sense of joy that you actually want to be there in sometimes some of their darkest moments. You
Mhm.
will spend as educators more waking hours with our children, our most prime precious resources. Nothing. The only thing I'd kill for on this planet are these three babies out in my living room, right?
Right.
And teachers will spend more waking hours with our most precious commodity, if you will, in the run of a school week than their parents will. If you're not okay, our kids don't stand a chance. The greatest intervention in any governmental system right now is in the education system. It's not in children. It's not in curriculum. It's not in getting more iPads or fucking, what do you call those screens, whiteboard shit. It's really about, are we caring for our educators? And in this province right now, we're on the heels of or the brink of a strike. And I would say so many times to government, if I had the power, I would be like, you can cut. Like, what I'm most interested in is you caring for educators, because when you're acknowledged, you rise. When you feel as though you were seen, they'll skate through walls for me. And that data is irrefutable. So we've got to shift that story from kids matter, kids first, which is all true, right? But they can't matter if the big people aren't okay.
So, what do we do for the big people to start taking care of them and showing up for them in actionable ways?
There's three priorities in this order: you, your teams, and then the people you serve, in that order. You matter more than anybody. Your teams, anything you got left, I want you to give it to your colleagues, your EAs, your custodian, your administrative staff, your bus drivers, all those kind of things. Then kids and families. Okay. What I mean by this is, so let's just take it back to you, first of all. We have done a semi-interesting job of sort of focusing on self-care, which is bullshit. So when I say to any organization, like any district, school division or district, I'm like, okay, so what do you have in place for your students? They're like, okay, we got zones of regulation. We have Leader in Me. We've invested in, everybody's got an iPad. We got like instructional coaches. We got like, no, never mind. That's for teachers. But like, do you understand? We got all these things. Everybody's
Mhm.
got all these like 57 things. Okay, cool. What do you have in place for your teachers? Well, they can wear jeans on Friday, and like, we do a potluck once a month. I'm like, holy fuck. Nothing says you matter like bring your own food. Okay.
Bet you they even have somebody to bring the paper plates.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so again, right, I get it, because we
Yes.
come from this long season of the purpose of the education system is to serve the children. Got it. We now are becoming the focal point, the church, the parents, the place where people grieve, the place where people celebrate. That landing place in most communities is either the hockey rink or the school. And this sounds very Canadian, so we'll just go with the school, okay? The people in that place need to know that they matter. And why that's really important is because we regulate so much better when we do. And if I were to say to everybody listening, I mean, I want you to think about, the top three kids in your head who you'll never forget. Right? If you've been teaching for more than like 2 minutes, and get the top three you'll never forget. And right now, what you'll be flooded with, right, is names and faces, and the ones that like maybe remembered your birthday or brought you snacks, or like maybe the ones that like where they were the life sucking cayuse that made you question like your sanity.
You.
Right, yeah, we all got them. And maybe even the ones who died. And I promise you, if you can get them in your head right now, they or their families think about you 10 times as much. If you only knew. You are woven into the trajectory of so many stories. I can tell you the first and last name of every teacher I had in my K to 12 school in Viking, Alberta, Canada. I'm a 50-year-old woman. I can tell you every single teacher. I can get them in my head. I know I can remember most of my EAs. My custodian's name was Mrs. Sheets. We had two administrative support personnel, Ev McLaren and Judy Fitzmore Simmons. Every time I come back into my community even as a 50-year-old woman, and I see those women, I feel 16 again. I remember that Holly Nordstrom was my favorite teacher. I can't remember what she taught me in grade 10, but I remember where she was wearing, or what she was wearing, where she was standing the day she had to tell us the captain of our hockey team had been killed. I went on to get a PhD. And I do not remember a single piece of literacy and numeracy. I remember teachers getting involved in sock hops. I remember, you know, how we would manage bullying situations, like all of those kind of situations. Like though, that's the thing that is where the joy of teaching, I think, becomes so critical when we remember just how holy it is to have those conversations in the hallway, or to be silly, or to, joy. You asked this earlier in some capacity because it made me think of this, but like whenever I'm invited into a school, I'm never ever listening for, I don't know, what I'm listening for the most is laughter, because the most vulnerable emotion on the planet is joy. And so, although, there's things that have to happen, policies and procedures need to be followed, all those things are happening. When I hear teachers belly laughing, when I hear staff belly laughing, I know we're in a good place. And the rest doesn't matter to me, because the rest will fall in line.
So we need to infuse more joy
Yes.
into
So, right. So, if we're talking about actionable consequences, I would say, one of the things that matters the most is that we are not good enough to have much control over the government for the rest of our careers. And I mean that with like all sincerity, not that we shouldn't be advocates or that we shouldn't raise our voices or do all those things, but sometimes when we think about the magnitude of the problems that we sort of presented at the beginning, at the top of the show, makes us sort of, it feels futile to even consider, right? So we're like, fuck it, what's the point? What matters to me is considering the only thing we need from each other is the next best right kind thing. That's it. Full stop. Next best right kind thing. That's the only thing I need you to think about. When you show up to work tomorrow with these babies, all I need you to think about is the next best right kind thing. And I promise you it is more than enough. If you wave in the parking lot on your way to school, you are not only changing lives, you're saving them. If you get the eyes of students before they step into your classroom, if you're waiting in the hallways, if you have the audacity to walk out to the bus lane and get the eyes of a bus driver and say, I'm so glad you got him here safe today. They talk about you all the time. If you can stop by the principal's office and with a Timbit, it doesn't have to, you don't have to offer anything. I'm just saying a hi chew, I just want you to know, I know this isn't easy, but I'm ready to go on Monday. I'm ready to go. I can't wait to meet these babies. You navigate. We have so much power that is underutilized when we stay stuck in our heads and are waiting for other people to do it for us. And so our access to the access to the best parts of ourselves always happens when we drop our shoulders and we drop our tongue from the roof of our mouth, when we regulate our own system, when we put our own lid back on. And if you've had very few people do that for you, it's hard to do that on your own. Okay. But the way that I do it on my worst moments is I always remember the word shoulders. And so I drop them. And there's word shoulders on like my bathroom mirror, in my car, on my computer, like everything. I have a number 8 on here that sort of reminds me the infinite loop of we're never going to arrive here. We are always going to end up back there. So just because I dropped my shoulders 2 minutes ago doesn't mean I'm not going to fucking do it 867 times.
Yeah, they just start to rise again on their own, don't they?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And so it's like, I just want to make sure that I have got my body in a place that I can give you the best I can with what I got on any given day, because I deserve it. And then I have a little more to come home to. I have a little more to give away. And that's really the only reason we're here. I mean, the most important people I work for are the ones I come home to.
I'm going to write that down. The next best right kind thing. That is a rule that we can remember and apply across settings and relationships. And it, I think, brings us back to those two things that you were teaching us about, that we need to look at each other, but that it's so easy to look away as soon as you think of what is the next best right kind thing. It's to turn around.
Mm-hmm. That's all you need. You string a few of those together in a day and you're better for it. You're the only one that matters to me. If you're okay, everybody you love, you lead, you care for, they'll be okay too. They got a much better chance of being okay.
I love that. I'm going to spread that around in every school that I'm in.
Yes, good. Do it. Take it.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. We are in the last section of our podcast and our time together, although I can tell you I will be talking about this for weeks. So I am going to throw out some common beliefs in education, and you can tell me if it's truth or if it's total BS. Teachers should leave emotions at the door.
Dumb. That's an irresponsible ask. because you can't tell kids how to do things, you have to show them. And teachers are so uniquely, beautifully human that all I want is all of you. And I appreciate the sentiment about what I want is regulated emotion from you to the best of your capacity on any given day, which is true because emotional regulation is contagious. And so when I am caring enough for my staff, I want to make sure that they are regulated. I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can to give them the best shot at that because they have their own lives and they're going through sickness and illness and divorce and death and all the things that everybody's doing. So I think that there's an honorable ask in saying, okay, I want you to drop your shoulders and check it, when you come in and serve other people's children. I think that makes sense to me. I think it's ludicrous to suggest that none of being human will seep into your classroom.
Yeah, it's, I think teaching is the work of humans and is human work.
Amen.
If a student is acting out, they are just seeking attention.
Okay. I don't know if you know, I have a quote from Kids These Days, and it said, here's one call to action. Every time you hear somebody, or every time you call a kid attention seeking, I want you to replace that with connection seeking. This kid is so connection seeking, and see how your perception changes.
I feel like even those words, connection seeking, I feel the smile behind it as opposed to, thinking about kids seeking attention. And immediately I feel a lot of negative connotations that come along with that word, seeking attention versus seeking connection. And I think that those might be the words that perhaps affect our path and take us down the road of being lonely. Because when we
we attribute the meaning to the behavior.
Exactly. Okay, so we've busted a couple myths. Now I want to know if you had a magic wand and could redesign schools from the inside out, where would you start?
I would put the priority on staff. So I would go to the parent board, I would go to the senior administrators, and I would start to ask for budgets, and being creative around how we're going to care for staff this season. A couple of ideas I would have is how do we surprise staff once every month or 6 weeks with something cool like a charcuterie board? If you've ever seen like a charcuterie board show up, you probably haven't because who fucking does this? But can you imagine if a charcuterie board like fancy showed up in a staff room? What happens to the people? They lose their goddamn minds. Okay, they're stepping over children. They're leaving kids unattended. They cannot believe there's hummus in the staff room.
Get there before it's all taken.
Yeah, the gym teachers are running. You've never seen them move so fast. And I think that, there's just so much truth in that, right? When you kind of consider that, I would say to the parent teacher council, I would be like, okay, I want you to consider creating a chalk night on Sunday nights where you get a group of kids together who can write beautiful messages to their teachers in their parking spaces on a Sunday night. So when they get in there on Monday morning, they'll see notes like my favorite teacher, parks here and I can't wait to see you today. And I mean, again, if you're not watching this, Robyn's face just melted. And so it's like, it's not hard, right? You understand? And I think that like, it's really being creative on, our parent councils. It's really being creative in our administrative spaces to not just have teacher appreciation day or teacher appreciation week or bus driver appreciation. Like we're wired for connection. And so I'd really be instilling in my staff to do that for each other. What's everybody's favorite chocolate bar? We don't have enough money to do this, but like, here's the list. And when I can see that Robyn's having a really hard day, I'm going to look it up. She's a Milky Way kind of girl. I'm going to do, that's going to end up on your desk with a little note that says, we got this. When I know a little bit, not just birthdays, but like favorite coffee order or favorite color or, whatever those things. And it feels so stupid when we're doing like team building bullshit, but it doesn't mean like you have to like, distribute this everywhere. It's sort of this idea that like, if we look after each other in some capacity, it becomes contagious. And there may be that 1 or 2 or 3 staff members that just won't play that game. And that's okay. They're going to need it more because the ones who need it the most are the hardest to give it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it is contagious, you can imagine the bigger your building.
Yes.
Contagiousness that's moving around that's going to hit that person from all angles. And hopefully, maybe if you're not the right person for them, somebody else actually has that connection. And because you have passed it on to them, they can now pass it on again.
You got it, girl.
I love it. I'm actually taking all of this in because these are the things that I can do myself as I'm moving into different schools and working with different teachers.
Yes, yes, you do. You're amazing. You're amazing. And this was amazing.
This was amazing. And Dr. Jody, you've reminded us that connection isn't a luxury, it is the damn intervention. And if we want schools that heal instead of harm, we have to start by seeing each other. To our listeners, who has helped you feel seen this week, and who needs to be who needs to
Who needs
feel
to be
seen?
felt? Who needs to be felt seen? You just go there and feel them up, okay?
Who needs a touch?
That's your call to action today. Be careful. Watch your HR.
I love it. Oh my goodness, Dr. Jody, thank you so much. I know you have another appointment coming up ahead, so we will pause here for now until we get in the same room together, because that's the next step.
You got it, girl.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jody.
Hey, you're welcome.